I'm tying up a very, very popular nymph today. This is a copper John, created by Barr. Wonderful, wonderful nymph. Gotten to be very, very popular over the years. And I would say for most people, it's right up there with a pheasant tail nymph, prince nymph, and a gold-ribbed hare's ears. It's just a fantastic little fly. Heavy as all get out. This thing sinks like a rock. It does not mimic any particular type of food source, but it looks like a lot of different things. You can vary up the color of the copper on that if you want. Instead of just plain copper, you can get colored wire, UTC ultra wire. It comes in a wide range of colors. So you can actually have a lot of fun with this for other different situations. This one right here is tied in a larger size for panfish for this spring. That is the copper John. I'll get started tying. Start the copper John with my hook and the vise. This is a Mustad 9672. It's a 2X long hook. The 2X long works a little bit better for the copper Johns. If you wanted a little bit shorter body, you could go with, say, 3906B, which is a little bit longer. But because of the longer abdomen and the thorax, I think a 2X long looks pretty good. I'm going to debarb that hook. Don't know that I can get to it with this jaw. I already have a bead on this. The copper John has a gold bead on the end, and I'm using, this is a 1/8 Cyclops bead. And I'm going to put some lead wraps on this next. The lead wraps that I'm using is a 0.20. So this is a size 10. Yes, I believe that is a size 10. Because I'm tying this a little bit bigger, mostly for fishing for panfish around here. Copper John is an excellent trout fly. It's a great nymph, and tied many of them in size 14s and 16s. They're a little bit more tedious, but very doable. But like I said, I'm tying a few up for some spring panfish, and size 10 will just work great. I'm going to take this 0.02 lead, and I'm going to put about 10 or 11 wraps of this lead on here. Copper John is a very heavy fly when it comes to most of your nymphs and things like this. It basically sinks like a rock once you get it in the water, and that's what you want it to do. With all those lead wraps on the hook shank, I'm going to shove all of those right up into that cavity at the back of the bead to anchor that bead. For thread, I'm using a Danville 6.0 in black. I'm going to go ahead and attach my thread just behind those lead wraps. I'm going to bring my thread down to just about the point of the hook. This is where we're going to tie in the tail. Copper John uses Biots. These are some Goose Biots for the tail. These are brown. You can vary these up if you want to do some copper Johns in different colors. Some people will use different colored UTC ultra wire, things like that, for the copper Johns, so that they actually have color variations to them. They're not all just the copper color. You're going to want to get those two Biots so that they are concaved out like this. You're going to tie those in. They're going to be about half a shank length. I don't want to tie those in and let them kind of go down, not necessarily on the sides, but you don't want them just squished up on the very top of the hook shank. A few wraps down to secure. You're going to start wrapping back up towards those lead wraps. Before you get to the lead wraps, you want to go ahead and cut the excess of those biots off. And then we can wrap up to the lead. What I want to do here is I'm going to wrap onto the lead too to kind of stabilize it, but I want to build a little bit of a thread dam and a taper so that our copper, when we wrap it in, will go up the thread to the same diameter as the lead wraps, and it gives us a nice forward taper to it, because they will end, the copper wraps will end right about where the lead begins. For copper, I'm just using ultra wire. This is a UTC ultra wire copper in a medium size for this size hook. I'm going to go ahead and attach that wire so that the end of it is just right almost up to those lead wraps, and then bring your thread all the way down, anchoring that wire all the way down at the end of the abdomen there. Make certain it's tied in well and leave your thread hanging just at the lead wraps. And then we're going to wrap in this copper. Each wrap's going to go just in front of the previous one. And this is where the copper john gets its name. The abdomen on this is just the copper wire. As you can see, it has a nice bright color to it. Nice segmentation to it. And on top of that, with the bead and the lead wire and all this copper wire, it just helps this thing sink even more. So you'll secure that wire in so it won't come out, and then we can fatigue that off, smoothing that out just a little bit. And now we're getting ready for our thorax. Just smoothing all those lead wraps there a little bit. So the thorax on this is mostly just peacock herl, but there's an interesting Wingcase on the copper john that is made out of a product called thin skin. It's like a vinyl, a real thin vinyl sheet that you buy. But he also has a little bit of Flashabou in it. I think the original ones, because they were small, much smaller, had just your regular Flashabou in there, which is kind of thin. Some people like to, on larger sizes, use the saltwater Flashabou, which is thicker. I'm simply going to double this over and tie in 2 strands of this so that I've got 2, hopefully side by side each other, when I bring this over on top of the thin skin for the Wingcase. I'm not as concerned about it. What it really is it just adds a little bit of flash, almost like an air bubble or something, which you'll see also goes in with the Wingcase that we put on here. The thin skin, you're going to cut that. You want that to be just a little bit less than the gap of the hook. This is just a little bit wide. Normally this thin skin comes, it has a cardboard backing to it. This little piece was already cut away from it. There is a shiny side and a dull side to this. You want to tie this in so that the dull side's up, because it's the shiny side that we're going to want to put on top of the peacock herl for our Wingcase. So I'm going to wrap all that in, and then making certain that's all right up on top. Then I'm going to tie in some Peacock Herl. I'm just using some strung Peacock Herl here. I've got 4 strands for this size hook, and these are going to basically get wrapped in similar to like on a pheasant tail nymph. These are just going to get wrapped in as my thorax. If you want to, with this size of a hook, maybe put a couple of extra wraps on top of it just to thicken that up a little bit. That's fine. Now, there's a couple of different ways. There are legs that go in this, and there's a couple of different ways you can do it. I have found that the easiest way is I'm using this is a Speckled Hen hackle. I'm going to take this hackle, and I only want the leg pieces that are going to be right up in this area here. So I'm going to peel a lot of this off. To where I have something shaped like this. And then I'm going to reach in with my scissors, and I'm going to clip out the very tip of this, like that. So I end up with just a V right there. I'm going to tie this in like this. Maybe peel off a few more here. Right on top. But I'm not going to anchor it down real tight, because I'm going to take this thin skin, I'm going to bring this forward, and you'll see kind of pushes those out and down. And then also what I can do before I do that is I can pull these legs back a little bit like this to shorten them up a little bit if I want to. This is not my technique, by the way. I learned this a long time ago from watching Tim Flagler, I hope I pronounced his name correctly there, do a video on the Copper John a long time ago. I had a customer in a fly shop that I worked at, came in about 15 years ago, 16 years ago, and wanted like six or 7 dozen Copper Johns. And I had tied a few of these. We don't do a lot of trout fishing here in Indiana. I had tied a few of them, but fortunately at that time, YouTube was getting to be a thing, and he had a really nice video out there on tying the Copper John. So don't worry about this little tab right here. That's going to get covered up in just a second. Then we take our Flashabou and we wrap that in over the top. Trim that away. See, those will all split up and just look like nice little legs there. I'm going to put in a 5 or 6 turn whip finish here. And I'm going to put a drop of head cement on here as well. However, the Copper John, the original, John Barr used epoxy. I think it was some 5-minute epoxy that he would put on the Wingcase and right in this area to it gives it kind of a 3-dimension look to it. It also it helps protect it a little bit, bouncing around. It looks like with all of this in under here, it looks like maybe some sort of air bubble even in the water. I don't know. Because the Copper John doesn't necessarily mimic a particular food. It looks like a lot of different things. So Now, I'm not, instead of the 5-minute epoxy, because that's going to take too long in the video, I'm using some Deer Creek tack-free UV resin, and I'm just going to put a little of this right up on top. And you can see that also, there you go. That's why I'm not worried about the thin skin. So you hit it with my light. And that is all cured and tack-free and done. So these will all split up in the water as you're fishing it and everything, and they'll all look nice and buggy. That is the Copper John. I said the thread wraps and the thin skin and everything up here get covered up with the epoxy or the UV, and so it protects it. I put a little head cement on them under here to help protect it too, but that is essentially the Copper John. Wonderful fly. John Barr did a great job with this one. It's become very popular, especially in trout circles, but like I said, even for panfish, it's a nice heavy fly, so if you where there's some panfish, you want to put it under an indicator so it's just right in front of their face, 3 feet down, 4 feet down, or whatever. It's perfect. So that is the Copper John. Thanks for watching today. Thank you for joining me at the Vice today. I hope you learned a new pattern, at least a tip or trick here and there. If you'd like to help Dress Irons, you can like, comment, share, subscribe, all those wonderful things for the video. You can also head out to dressedirons.com where you can buy flies, tools, stickers, and merch, or you can join a growing community over on Locals at the Dressed Irons Fly Tying Guild. You can also donate to Dressed Irons if you want through the link at the bottom of the description. I thank everybody for their ongoing support, as it really does help the creation of these videos. And what's important is to remember, only fly tying. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong.